Guys, welcome to the first Friday of ECFA Daily. During the week, I like to talk about step charts, but on Fridays, I like to have a guest on to talk about dance games. This week, our guest is one of my best friends, a rhythm game polymath, nominated for the best dad in rhythm games, and also ECFA tournament organizer. We have McJeebie with us. How are you doing, man?
Man, I'm great. Thanks for having me on. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, you want to just give everybody a quick intro of yourself?
I'll make it brief. My name's McJeebie or Logan. I'm out of Houston. I've been playing rhythm games since 2002. I started with DDR like a lot of people. Just saw it in our arcade randomly, tried it once, and immediately got hooked. DDR, and then got picked up 2DX along the way somewhere. That was my main game for years, and then discovered a few others, Sound Voltex, Poppin', a few others along the way. And then ITG was always kind of there in the background. The arcade that I grew up playing in had an ITG1 conversion kit. And so I remember exactly when ITG1 came out, how different it was, how different the music was, I think was the biggest thing for me. And the step charts were obviously way harder than anything present in DDR at the time, so that was really cool. So I kind of took a hiatus because I didn't really have ITG access from the time I graduated high school in 2008 to probably 2015 was the next time I really saw what ITG was again. And then by that time it was completely different. It was, people were largely running customs. That was definitely the focus at the time. And so I've been kind of tangentially involved since 2015, and really started taking it seriously a couple years ago.
Yeah. So now that I think about it, I actually know you because you're involved with the Houston ITG community. I have family down there, so I'm down there every so often. I meet the community out there, and it's great. I think maybe you got involved at ITG around the time that I was kind of getting in touch with the Houston community, actually, because there's a couple like private machine owners that kind of graciously let you play on their setups on occasion, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Houston IGD cabs are kind of scattered all over. They're private setups. So yeah, that was a really cool. We had a couple of small tournaments that I helped with, and they were always really fun. We'd pile into Stefano's house and just have a great time for about 8 hours.
Yep. And then so this year you were involved with a lot of the organization for ECFA 2021. I remember getting a text from you back in like August of last year of like, it was a PowerPoint maybe 8 to 10 slides deep of like all these things that went into it. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because ECFA 2021 as it is now has been in a much longer stage of planning than most people know.
Yeah, it has actually. So I want to take us back real quick to a time when we could all safely go to arcades when DDR was still really popular and still really big, and that was January 2020. I was busy with one of my other projects that sadly has not got off the ground to date, but hopefully will at some point. The DDR Champions League, which some of you may be familiar with. Vincent's nodding his head because he was on the development team for that as well. And unfortunately, COVID hit in the worst way, and the event really didn't get off the ground. And so, while we were still grappling with what the pandemic would ultimately look like, it became very clear that ITG was primed for a resurgence. ITG was primarily played at home nowadays. People that have private setups. And so there was a huge influx of people that were buying pads, getting into ITG, and just really starting to go in. The other thing that I noticed was that we really didn't have an ECFA 2020, and that was probably for a few reasons. One, for those who know, Kyle Dobey kind of pretty much ran ECFA by himself, 2018, 2019, the online versions of ECFA. I helped with 2019 as far as contributing, But it was clear that Kyle was really toting the lion's share of the work. And so I thought to myself, there is a market for ECFA 2021. I know that people have been clamoring for it. I know that Kyle has wanted to do it. Let me see if I can help. And so I did what I do best. I put together a PowerPoint. And I kind of outlined some of the things that were bouncing around in my head. It really just and me and Kyle, I mean, we've known each other for a few years, but we mostly knew each other from just, hey, I signed up. Where do I sign in? Can you run my card draw? Versus being friends on a deeper scale. So he really took a chance on me. I really just kind of said, hey, Kyle, do you have 15 minutes where I can just kind of spitball some ideas for a potential ECFA 2021? And that conversation turned into 2 hours of us just talking about things. And it was apparent that he wanted to do it. I wanted to help out as much as possible. And that was the start.
Yeah, especially when you go to someone like Kyle, who's been running tournaments for, God, seriously, has to be like most of his adult life, or competing in tournaments, like he has a lot of expertise to give to you. So like, what all was in that original proposal, and like how well was it received?
Oh man, so in the original proposal, a lot of the ideas weren't like incredibly fleshed out yet, but there were a few things that I wanted to implement relative to ECFA 2019. So for those who remember, ECFA 2019 was separated into divisions, lower, middle, upper. You had to play basically every song in every division, in a particular division, if you wanted to be competitive. And so I remember grinding, holy cow, Calcutta, trying to quad it, just stuff like that. I did quad it, by the way. No, I was solidly a middle player. And one of the things that I thought would be good for ECFA 2021 was to be able to provide some more flexibility in how the player approached the event. And so one of the things I felt very strongly about was eliminating the concept of divisions, but also creating a song pack that was very large, and create a system on the back end to where the player wouldn't have to play everything. They could be able to pick and choose as they saw fit to compete. And so one of the things that was in that original PowerPoint was the idea of like a Volforce type system for those who play Sound Voltex. Sound Voltex has a system where it basically numerically ranks how good your scores are based on chart difficulty and score, and it takes your top 50 and sort of averages it. I wanted to kind of extend that to ECFA, but then it was like, okay, how do we score these? Because before it was based on step count. That's it can get you part of the way there, but in some instances, it can lead to wildly different outcomes than you may expect.
Well, yeah, because I think like the whole idea of ratings being a single number has always been, in like the modern era, like a very strong point of controversy. Just because two songs are 13s does not mean that they're even like remotely the same. Like,
that's right.
Arcology on Permafrost is a 13, and so are other charts in like Cirque du Zeppelin are also 13s. Yeah. So
agree. And so that leads me into the next big thing that was kind of on my radar is, if you will, is the tech radar. People had been kind of clamoring for this. People had been trying, different step artists like ITG Alex and Chief Skittles had been implementing their own sort of tech annotations, just a way to express how difficult the chart was to score on. Versus an ITG block difficulty that primarily expresses how difficult the song is to pass. And so I thought, what better venue to really sort of, gel this and, distill this down into something that's cohesive, but also simple. And then incorporate that into the scoring system for ECFA. Let's figure out a way to do that. And so that was also, I think, probably the biggest piece of what I had in the original proposal.
Yeah, going back to what you said about the Volforce system too, with Volforce only taking your top 50 songs, ECFA is taking the top 100. That's such a huge improvement from ECFA 2019, where I would remember, each round was like 30 songs, and you had a month and a half to play those songs. But if you're someone as talented as Rinker or ITG Alex, what would happen is you could potentially quad 20 of the 30 songs in the first week or two. And that actually means that they're left grinding anywhere from 5 to 10 songs for the span of a month.
Yeah, I can remember people specifically grinding Newton's Cradle, and it was almost like a train wreck you couldn't take your eyes off of because people were it was draining people, and so I definitely wanted to take that frustration factor out of ECFA 2021.
So in that proposal, was there anything that you remember that Kyle either shut down or knew had to be changed, or is he pretty all for it?
Actually, it's funny because most of the ideas were still very conceptual at the time. Some of them definitely evolved into what the event is now, but actually, I pretty much said, "Let's go, let's do this."
Yeah. So now going forward into talking about ECFA 2021, what were your first steps to making this reality? I know you talked to Kyle. Was there something that happened right after that?
Yeah, so after my initial conversation with Kyle, we both felt pretty optimistic that we could get this done. And so, we started, thinking about who should be involved because obviously we couldn't do it by ourselves. And so we started thinking about the right people to get involved early. One of the things that I really felt strongly about was that this potentially represents a huge step change in how we think about ECFA Online. Let's get people on board early. Let's start meeting often. And let's, get a lot of the conceptual stuff formalized before we really get into the nuts and bolts of putting the event together. And that did pay off. We put together, I think, the strongest team. Everyone on the team contributed so much from just insight on how players think about things, how things feel versus how they should be. We had to balance those for sure, and so we had a really great, I think, diverse skill set, like people that are obviously pros, people that are solid players, people that think about lowers, because lowers obviously are hugely important to the growth of the game, and so we definitely intentionally targeted those people, those kinds of mindsets. And I think our original team consisted of Kyle and then myself and then Telperion, Chief Skittles, Implode, Leon Twix, and Mason Hester. And so there were 7 of us. And the biggest thing that came was actually out of our very first group conversation that we had. We made the decision right then and there to move the entire event to Project Waterfall timing. And there was a lot of, I don't want to say, consternation, but there was a great spirited debate on which direction we should go, because we weren't quite sure whether we wanted to keep the same, ITG format from before and have a certain percent be FA plus, that kind of thing. But we knew that timing had to be the focal point of the event, as it always is. And so after really talking about it all with the team and mulling over it for a couple of weeks, the team came to a consensus that this could be a focal point. This could be a time prime to shift into something where we really haven't ever gone before. Steve's Project Waterfall theme was fairly new at the time. Stevereen, by the way, his Project Waterfall theme was fairly new at the time, but we thought it had the potential to be revolutionary, and so we wanted very much to feature that theme and the corresponding timing windows as as the focal point of the event. And then we wrestled with issues like, should we allow people to play ITG at a cost of points? How do we balance that? And ultimately, where we landed was we're going with Waterfall. This is the future of open source 4-panel dance gaming with respect to tech. and we have a chance to showcase this in a way that gets people excited about it. So that was an instrumental. That's the type of conversation that we would have as a group.
Yeah, I think we could leave standardization discussion for a completely other week, because that's a whole like big can of worms. But at the time of recording this, ECFA has only been running for a few days. But honestly, just from the few days that I've been playing it, like that experience has just been incredible. How everything integrates into the software, how everything tracks my scores, and all of that. It's very similar in feeling to when I was playing like Stamina RPG with QR code tracking, except it's kind of surviving in its own ecosystem in its own way, and it feels really good to play.
By the way, shout outs to Stamina RPG. If you ask me what the gold standard is, for an event in all of rhythm gaming, not just ITG, all of rhythm gaming, that's Stamina RPG. It is my favorite event from concept to execution. I love looking at reading the lore. It's perfect. And to the extent that we wanted to emulate that, I don't think we could. I don't think we could replicate, Stamina RPG, but we did definitely look to them for inspiration on a lot of things.
I mean, they've had 4 iterations to do it. Who knows where ECFA could be after 4 online iterations.
That's true. But let's circle all the way back. We made the decision to use Stevereen's Waterfall theme, and then from there we started figuring out on how to enhance the player experience. And that's when we made the decision to bring Stevereen on as a full-time member of the ECFA dev team. And that was also one of the best decisions we ever made, because he's not only did he provide a lot of insight and expertise, he obviously took the lead. He was already working on his own thing, but he also took the lead on implementing ECFA 2021 features as you see them in his Project Waterfall theme. So huge! I cannot say enough about the work that Steve has done.
Do you want to give a shout out to like the rest of your team? I'm actually curious what everybody's roles are, because obviously Steve's been doing programming. I know Mason is responsible for providing a lot of the lower charts, like the 7s and 8s, which I've already seen on Discord has had really positive reception to have charts that low that also feature tech. And I'm also curious who the mathematician is on the team that has generated all of these crazy formulas for calculating like stance point percentages and weights and gimmick scalars and stuff like that.
Yeah, we can start with that. So I actually wrote the initial iteration of the math. So I'm not the mathematician, by the way. I'm just an engineer. But but I did try to capture concepts such as, as you get closer towards 100% of available dance points on a song, it gets a lot harder. It's an exponential curve. And so that's where that thought came from on the formulation of that particular piece of the equation. But I tell you who the real mathematician is, and that's Mason. He that's his job. He is a math professor, and so he took basically what I had cobbled together and really refined it and made it cohesive and coherent. Up and down the difficulty spectrum, we really tried to be intentional about how that formula impacted. How should the hardest 12s be worth more than the 13s? How do we get that to happen? Those kinds of questions. Mason and Steve actually really helped with that too, but Mason took the lead on that, on refining what we had. I think Leon, I think, was the calming voice in the room. He has a unique perspective on things, and he really yanked us out of the weeds a couple of times to see the 30,000 foot view. And so it was really cool to have him on the team, because not only is he an old school player, he also is on the cutting edge. He sees both sides, and he also so his perspective was really good. Oliver contributed a lot in the way of graphics. So if people are, wish to be observant, or people want to, take a look through, they will see a number of new graphics, a lot of which were made by himself, a lot of which were made by Chief Skittles. I think Blue Chows and Sudsy also contributed some graphics, as well as a lot of the step artists. But Oliver really took the lead on managing that workflow and getting all those churned out in short order. So yeah, props to him. Implode, I think we really kind of focused. Me and Implode focused a lot on. I'm not going to tell everybody who rated what kinds of charts. But you can blame Trevor for all the 12s.
I think he's openly admitted. I think he's openly admitted to that.
Yep. Yeah, he'll tell you. So, but I think the entire team really did, particularly Mason, on the ratings. I think without getting too much into kind of, and we can kind of, if you want to, talk about the rating system and how that came to be, but it was a lot of painstaking work to get accurate ratings for all of the base pack, all of the songs that we've identified as we want to be DLC. And so, yeah, so that was a lot of man hours there. And so that was a true team effort. And then I don't think we get anywhere without Kyle's leadership and vision. Obviously he's Mr. ECFA. This is part of his vision for open source, 4-panel dance gaming, as far as the leader of the tech community. And so without his vision, this doesn't happen. So, me personally, I just kind of, I was kind of the project manager. I kind of scheduled meetings, track milestone completion, assigned, tasks as appropriate. I took on a lot. I built the spreadsheet that tracks the scores. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you said this is the first time you've tracked a spreadsheet where you've gone into triple digit letters.
Yep, and I never want to do it again.
I guess the last thing to talk about is we haven't talked about the concept of an FA pass.
Yeah, so that's actually a concept that was in place in ECFA 2019. You may not have noticed it because you were FA passing everything. But for middle players, you had to get, I think it was 50% DP, where DP was 1 for a fantastic, minus a half for a miss, or something like that. And that was it. You had to get 50% if for all middle charts in order to register points. Because the idea was we wanted players to demonstrate some level of competency on scoring versus just passing. And so that was the idea for the FA pass. Now, the requirements for upper charts had ratcheted up considerably. That they were set at 90%. Yeah, so you can imagine that, combined with the relative difficulty of those charts, that was pretty brutal. But a lot of people managed to play upper charts very well. And so with this, we thought we had an opportunity to refine that. And give players an even greater challenge with respect to applying themselves to a 15 millisecond window. So we took the FA pass concept and applied it to every chart, levels 7 through 14, and then every difficulty block up, the DP requirement for FA pass goes up. And you may think, wow, that sounds kind of counterintuitive. But the idea is that as you go up, you should be challenging yourself. You should be getting more comfortable with the 15 MS window, first of all. You should be getting more comfortable with the tech required to execute that general level of charge. And then we really wanted to push the upper end, especially 13s and 14s. We set the bar very high. And so, I think the minimum FA pass requirement for a 7 is 60% of DP. The minimum FA pass requirement for a 13 is 85. 85% DP, and that's assigning 3 points for a masterful and only 1 for an awesome. So players do get credit for getting awesomes, but not nearly as much as masterfuls. And so when you take that into consideration, 85% is pretty tough for a lot of people. I screamed when I FA passed to 13 last night because I felt like I ripped, and I did. So that was the intended reaction for getting those kinds of scores. And then for a 14, the DP requirement is 86. And so it's a very high standard. But we wanted players to feel rewarded when they do get them.
Yeah, like I think I initially shook my head at it because, man, I've considered myself pretty good, but man, like some of the 14s I'm predicting are going to be in the pack. Like I'm worried about even FA passing it, but I think that kind of gratification of timing is something that's always been missing from ITG, and it's kind of taking that, going back to Stamina RPG, like the idea of passing like a really hard stamina chart at a higher block that you've never done before, it kind of brings that same level of satisfaction back into timing.
Yeah, it does. And to your point earlier, so the plan is we are going to push out incremental content to the base pack for ECFA 2021 on a bi-weekly schedule. That is currently slated to kick off beginning of March. We are actively still looking for charts that have been released recently. So we have a handful of charts that have been identified that will be in DLC. That's obviously we could add more. I think that's one of the great things about the way we have it set it up is we have the flexibility to do that if we need to. And without giving too much away, a lot of the stuff in DLC will be very spicy.
Man, well, I am thoroughly enjoying ECFA right now. I mean, I'm scared it's going to be a long 5 or 6 months, but
it'll be a long 5 months. Pace yourself. That's my biggest piece of advice to players. It's going to be easy to get overwhelmed by the end. I mean, I think the base pack is almost 400 songs. Don't worry about trying to get through them all. Don't stress out about game planning at this point. Just play, have fun. To the extent that you want a game plan to get better, do it. But it's a long event, so pace yourself. Make sure you don't burn out, and just enjoy yourself. Enjoy the new stuff.
All right, Logan. So before I let you go, do you have any shoutouts?
Yeah, I got a few. Firstly, the Houston Rhythm Game community. Love y'all. Y'all are my people. Cowboys in Blue, my ride or dies. Shout outs to Tommy Reyes. Love that guy. Shout outs to all of the amazing ITG content creators, especially all the new folks. There have been a huge influx of quality content creators that have come to the forefront. We really hope to showcase them as part of ECFA 2021. Shout outs to the ITG FA community. Y'all are why we do what we do. It's for y'all. So enjoy. And lastly, I would like to give a huge shout out to my wife. I've spent a lot of personal time. She's been really understanding and supportive as we work to get this event off the ground, and she really is the best. So thank you, honey.
There you have it. ECFA's TO, secretly lead, maybe TO, and contentiously Dance Game's best dad, McJeebie. Thanks for coming on, man. Thanks to you guys for tuning in to the first weekly guest episode of ECFA Daily. If there's anybody else you want to see on, I'm totally down to. There's a lot of conversations to be had about ITG. There's a lot of interesting people to talk to, like Chrono, who doesn't turn his body ever. He double steps everything. Or how Omid got good really, really fast. I have a lot of things I want to ask a lot of people. So, yeah. Any suggestions for who you want to see? Definitely leave a comment. Other than that, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next week.